I would say from either side is fine.
Oh my gosh, there's a lot of stuff. Yeah, fine, yep.
It's loud, so we can stay back up. It doesn't need to be.
How far? Like this? No, I have to be. Really? How about now? That's good? All right, I'll just leave it.
Yes, yes, it is. We'll just pass it around.
There are 6 of us, and we're waiting for one more. Thank you, and I'm sorry, I'm Bonnie.
John Gravy. I'm Karen's other half.
Oh, John, nice to meet you. Okay.
I think if you want to wait another couple minutes,
We can, and if you're, it's up to you guys.
It's up to you.
He's not here, but he's later
Oh,
in our
wait a minute.
lineup, so.
Oh, he is?
Yeah, the man with the materials.
But that's okay. Well, we'll do it unobtrusively.
Okay.
So you have 3 on this side and 2 on this side, is that
We
right?
actually have 6 altogether.
Oh, I thought you just told me.
I did, and I just recounted and we have 6. Sorry.
Whatever. Can I borrow a minute?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. I forget you and your thing. Yeah, I just got it. Because I always forget last names. And I don't. I'm sorry. You'll have to wash this off or alcohol it. Sorry about that.
Can you also want it next to you?
Maybe one of you should be on that side. It looks sort of lopsided.
Oh,
I know. I meant sort of like you be the welcome crew.
Sit over here.
Can you tell those of us who are firstborns? Hey, we need
I am too.
Are you? Why is that not surprising to me? Even though I just mentioned it. All right, you say when you're. Now what? Okay, is that the person with the brochures? Good.
This makes me nervous. This makes me a little nervous.
Well, the good thing is we get to,
Do you want to put those under the chairs?
No, as long as I back them up from the chairs.
I mean, is the goal for us to get up to here? Or
I
we use
that's,
I think we got mic.
that, you got mic. Do you have mic on?
Yeah, we do, so that should cut down
Okay.
some risk.
Are you? Hi. I have to do a few commercials for upcoming events. I do those first, and then I'll say a little bit. I'm just going to say what we put in our word, which was you probably every kind of programs. We're very pleased to welcome. We're very pleased to bring you a panel close to the front line of Montgomery programs, county programs and services. That's it. So I won't be.
designated spots or
And is the judge is not going to come up here? Well, he's headed that way. Do you want? You're going to say something about timing. Is this one of somebody coming? The person coming up the aisle, is that somebody with you? Or? No, not the judge. The woman coming up the aisle. Okay. I don't always know everybody who's here. Okay, you tell me when you're comfortable and I'll start. Oh, I wish I had water here. I forgot water here, but I only have a little bit. Should I start? Oh. We're going to get started, folks. So if you'll take your seat, we have plenty. You're welcome up front. Good evening. I'm Ruth Schumacher, and I'm with the Adult Education Committee here at Temple Beth Or, and we are delighted you all are here, and those of you who are joining us electronically. Part of my job is to give the commercials, so I'm going to get that out of the way first, and then say a few words about our presentation tonight. We have a really busy month at the Temple in February, and you all are invited to any and all of our events. February 9th, Chai Mitzvah is meeting. This is a program of Jewish learning. You'll discover a lot, mostly about yourself. February 15th, we have the Jewish Short Story Group meeting. You'll learn a lot about Jewish literature in the context of history. It's a fun, interesting group. Please join us as often as you can. On the 18th of the month, we have a speaker speaking on authentic Cuba. Unless you have lived in Cuba, you will learn something you didn't know, I would bet money. She has been, I think, 17 times to Cuba. She brings us her personal perspective, which is wide and varied. In fact, I wasn't planning to say this, but I will. Just to give you an idea of the kind of presenter she is, this is Marianne Olding. She was one of 4 people responsible for bringing the slave pen to the Underground Museum in Cincinnati. And I believe that is the only one known of. The rest are all buried. So she's just a wonderful person, and she has a lot to say. You'll be interested in hearing her. Our events are publicized pretty widely, but if you have any questions about an event, you can contact the front office. On the 19th, we have our second CPR, first aid, and stop the bleed training. It is our goal to offer training and retraining to all adults who want them within the temple and within the Jewish community. So those are the events. We hope you'll join us at several of them, really. Tonight, before I go to tonight, I want to give a shout out to Karen Granby over here and Mark Ruenberg back there, and Marnie, I saw Marnie over there, all of whom are on adult ed and all of whom did some heavy lifting for the event tonight. Most of you have probably been involved with planning and hosting events, and you know it takes a lot of time, a lot of patience, and a lot of cooperation. And the temple as a whole, and certainly I am indebted to those folks for stepping up to the plate. Tonight, we are privileged to have a panel, as you see, and the panel is from the Montgomery County Office of Reentry. They're going to talk with you about programs and services designed to minimize barriers, really, to effective reentry and to promote reduction in recidivism. These are important goals, and I look forward to hearing what they have to say. Their motto is action, alliance, and accountability. You will hear about all 3 tonight. So welcome. Thank you for joining us. Karen?
We'd be here all night. We waited for me to go up there. So, again, welcome. We're really happy to have you here. And I just want to say how excited I was when Bonnie came via Zoom to our adult ed committee meeting and presented this program. I'm a retired RN, and I am still have an active license and have been looking for something to get involved with that I find very meaningful to myself, where I believe I can help. And also, it speaks to one of our many Jewish tenets in terms of helping humankind. And so I was so excited when I heard about this program, and I can't wait to hear more about it tonight. And so thank you again for coming, and we'll look forward to seeing you after the words for the reception. So I want to introduce Bonnie Beeman Rice. Her legal career spans 43 years from courtroom to bench. She graduated with honors from the Indiana University, received her Juris Doctorate from the University of Dayton School of Law. For 11 years, she worked as a trial attorney with the firm of Dodge, Parks, Little, and Beeman, where she had special emphasis in the areas of discrimination law and criminal defense. In 1992, she began her service on the bench of the Vandalia Municipal Court as a magistrate, a position she held for 22 years until her retirement in 2014. Upon her retirement from the bench, she served for 2 years as the director of the Leadership Honors Program for the University of Dayton School of Law. And in the spring of 2019, she was sworn into the United States Supreme Court, where it was her honor to meet the iconic Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg. In retirement, Bonnie is devoting her time to social justice issues. She's the current chair of the Jewish Community Relations Council, as well as the Dayton Bar Association's Social Justice Initiative. Bonnie serves as a board member of both the CARES, C-A-R-E-S, Justice Institute, and the Public Defenders Commission. She's here tonight in her capacity as co-chair of the Public Education Subcommittee for Montgomery County's Reentry Council. All right, thank you, Bonnie, and thank you everyone for being here.
Karen, thank you so much. And I want to thank the Adult Education Committee who reached out to us and are providing us this platform to tell you about a program that we are all so extremely excited about. The reentry efforts by Montgomery County have taken hold here and have been very successful, and we're going to fill in all the details for you. But my goal is to just kind of give you an overview as the public education co-chair, along with my co-chair, Reverend Ridley, who cannot be here tonight, but we are thrilled to be here to provide information to you. So what we do in public education is we try to give you an overview, kind of a front row seat to the journey that citizens take as they return home from incarceration back into our community. And that journey is not always an easy one. As you can imagine, there are barriers that they face. Many times employers are not willing to offer employment to them. Many times there are landlords who refuse to rent to them, let alone the toll that incarceration takes on families and family relationships. So you can imagine that these barriers might seem insurmountable if you're a returning citizen. But we have good news tonight. They are not insurmountable. Two things. Ruth said we try to minimize people returning to jail, that we try to minimize their failures. Miss Jamie G is here. She's our office manager for the Office of Reentry, does an incredible job. And I think she would have us say, instead of minimizing failures, we are maximizing successes for the citizens who come through our community. So, and I think that is very much in correlation with a Jewish, since we've got a Jewish audience tonight, a Jewish famous quote by David Ben-Gurion that I absolutely love. He says, "A Jew who doesn't believe in miracles is not a realist." So from its inception, our Office of Reentry here in Montgomery County has focused on the humanity of the citizens returning back to our community. And they do that by offering an open door and an open heart, whereas so many other people shut the doors in their faces and offer closed hearts. But what we have seen time and time again is that by focusing on that humanity of our clients, their hearts open, and they, when they are on firm ground, turn around and pull other people through that door, help them advance, help them as well. So it's an incredible support network, and this focusing on humanity really is the playbook for our staff in Montgomery County for the Office of Reentry, and they do an amazing job of it. You'll get to know some of that staff tonight. You'll hear some of their stories, and I think you can judge for yourselves. But I am just blown away by it. It is a miracle what these people do. The journey that returning citizens take is both an outward journey. They have to deal with these barriers that I've mentioned. It's also an inward journey. And as you know, that is probably the hardest journey that all of us take in our lives, trying to become the person that we want to be. And with that inward journey, we see so many successes. So with that in mind, our Public Education Committee, when we appear in public like this, have two very important asks that we like to make of our audience. The first ask is that we ask you to dispel the public skepticism that is out there in the community that is still palpable, unfortunately. And we would like you to help us dispel that by listening to what we have to say tonight, relaying the information that we provide you to others. When you hear a skeptic, please let them know the success that we are having. And the way we dispel that skepticism is we feature our returning citizens and they tell their stories. And when you hear these stories of human challenge and human triumph, you can't help but be moved by what they have done in turning their lives around and contributing to the community. And I think it's the best way, really, the best antidote to any skepticism. The second ask that we ask is that you become an ambassador for reentry for us. And by that, I'm suggesting that if you see somebody who is a skeptic of the success of our program, please give them the facts that we'll give you tonight. Many people say that people come home from prison through a revolving door and that they go back into that revolving door to prison again within a few years. But we find that our program here in the county is the best doorstop to that revolving door that you could possibly have. So as an ambassador, we would ask that, number one, if you're associated with any groups that would like to have a presentation like this, please reach out to us. We'll go to schools, we'll go to civic groups, service organizations, faith-based institutions. We'll talk anywhere, anytime to anybody. So please ask us to do that. If you're interested in volunteering for the Office of Reentry, we can make that happen for you. We have sign-up sheets, which we'll pass around later. Please give us your name and your contact information, indicate your interest, and we'll make that happen for you. One of the things that we feel you can do at minimum is to stay informed. And we're very excited. We have a new reentry newsletter out, which we call The Journey. And we would love to put you on our digital email list. If you'd like to receive that newsletter, again, sign up on the sign-up sheet and we'll make sure we get that to you. And finally, as a congregation, if you would like to be involved with reentry, we would love it if you would host a breakfast when we have our graduation from our Career Academy that our participants attend. We would love it if you would do collections if there's something that the returning citizens need. They often need bus passes to get to and from work or to get places. There are any number of ways that you might be able to volunteer. Marty Jacobs, who I absolutely have so much respect for, is an author, and she came and gave a class to the returning citizens on writing, which was wonderfully cathartic for the citizens. And Marty, I hope we can start that up again. I know it was, I think there was a small attendance because our men and women do work, but it was a wonderful opportunity for someone to volunteer and give the gifts that they have to the reentry program. So that, in a nutshell, is what we do for public education. I'm delighted that you're here tonight. I think we've got a panel that is just stock full of information to give to you. We have materials we'll hand out. And please sign our sign-up sheet if you're interested in volunteering or getting the newsletter or just want to be contacted by us. So our next speaker is going to be Amy Piner. And Amy is a native Daytonian who considers herself to be a change agent and resource optimist. She currently works, that tells you a lot about Amy right there, just that description. She currently works as commission assistant for County Commissioner Debbie Lieberman, where she brings more than 18 years of employment experience in various capacities with Montgomery County. Before joining Team Lieberman, she was program coordinator for the Montgomery County Office of Reentry. As a staff member of the Office of Reentry since its inception in 2010, Amy was one of the pioneers for the Reentry Career Alliance Academy and helped launch the Entrepreneur Boot Camp. and she can explain to you what that is as well. Prior to joining the Office of Reentry, she worked with the Common Police Court as pre-sentence investigation officer, case management specialist, and jury coordinator. Amy obtained a Bachelor of Science degree in organizational management from Wilberforce University. She also has an associate degree as a legal assistant from Sinclair Community College. She has extensive legal background and has worked in the law firms of Washington and Hollingsworth, Thompson and Hine, as well as the Huber Heights Police Department. Amy started her legal career journey with LexisNexis as a product manager in charge of their complex litigation automated docket system. We are lucky to have Amy, who has an incredible talent for seeing the broader perspective, eloquently conveying it, and carrying her vision to fruition. Amy? Wherever you want to.
Like you set the stage for the podium. Sorry. Well, good evening again, everybody, and it's a pleasure to be here this evening. And anytime I think that we get the opportunity to talk about reentry, we're always delighted for that. And Bonnie, what a great job setting it up for us and creating the stage for everybody here today. So as Bonnie mentioned, I'm here on behalf of Commissioner Debbie Lieberman, who would have loved to have joined us tonight, but had a couple of other obligations as well. And so I start out by just talking about write the vision and make it plain. So in 2005, as a result of vision, that's how the concept of this began. It was a conversation from Judge Rice to Commissioner Lieberman, who was newly elected at the time, and actually did it without hesitation, felt like reentry was the right thing to do, and without question, she was completely on board with that mission based on the conversation she had with Judge Rice. And so in 2008, a reentry task force was established, and then work groups began breaking down focus areas specific to reentry needs. And some of those focus groups included things like employment, housing, just some of the basics that you can imagine. And we give them fancy names like criminogenic needs and things like that, but it looked at all those spaces that can become barriers to individuals who are returning or who are experiencing barriers as a result of that criminal justice involvement. And so the Reentry Task Force actually developed 17 recommendations that centered on reducing recidivism. One of those recommendations was to establish a reentry policy board and open the Office of Reentry. And so that happened in 2010. So that tells you how long the Reentry Office has been established and the work that they've been able to accomplish. The policy board was established also in 2010, and then the opening of the office was the result of grant funds that were secured. The Office of Reentry was originally called the Montgomery County Office of Ex-Offender Reentry, and through the ability to exceed grant expectations, it actually became a fully funded Montgomery County department, which made it the first department to do so. So that was a huge accomplishment. All the outcomes, which we didn't use the words outcomes at that time, but the outcomes that were set out in the grant application were exceeded, and it really demonstrated clearly the need in the community for individuals to have a place and resources to connect with upon their release. And unfortunately, with grant opportunities, while it creates just that, great opportunities, it also had barriers because of the fact that we couldn't serve individuals who had been experiencing barriers for years as a result of their criminal background. There was a direct link to individuals coming out of prison. But still, to be able to exceed that and service individuals who had never before had that opportunity. And so through the work that was done over the years, the Office of Reentry saw the importance of taking that ex-offender portion of the name out of it, and it became known as the Montgomery County Office of Reentry. Because again, we want people to feel welcome when they come through the doors, and not that they don't. The staff does an awesome job of that and creating that kind of environment and expectation. But again, a name can say a lot and can introduce people or stop people from coming in from the beginning. Montgomery County citizens with a desire to change their lives as a result of criminal justice involvement is what the office really centers on. And the Reentry Policy Board currently operates as the Reentry Council. So you heard Bonnie mention that this is the Public Education Subcommittee, which is a part of that Reentry Council. The Reentry Council is co-chaired by Judge Rice and Commissioner Lieberman, as well as the co-chairs of our 6 subcommittees. And those subcommittees include Community and Family Engagement, Housing, Employment, Legal, Public Education, and Women in Reentry. And so as we call out any of those, if those spark interest for you, as Bonnie mentioned, as volunteer opportunities, either through connection with the subcommittees or with the office in general, we definitely extend that invitation for participation to you. The Office of Reentry continues to exceed expectations through programming, and specifically the Reentry Career Alliance Academy that continues to put Montgomery County in advance of others and among other, in advance of other counties throughout Ohio in its commitment and service to reentry services. So you'll hear more details about the Reentry Career Alliance Academy when Sterling and Jennifer give some information. And so we look forward to that. But I will say that one of the things that Commissioner Lieberman often says is that the Office of Reentry has been the best investment in people that Montgomery County could have made. And she's very passionate about the work of reentry and continues to do that work throughout the state of Ohio to make sure that we remain relevant in the space in terms of funding opportunities that come through, as well as other resources that may benefit our returning citizens here in Montgomery County. Last year, she served as the president for our counties for Ohio, for the, I always do this wrong, CCAO. So she was the president of that organization. So this year, she's first past president, and she continues to serve in that capacity to work along with other commissioners throughout the state of Ohio so that we get priorities on funding and other opportunities. And this year, it just so happened that she's also president of our Board of County Commissioners. So again, on behalf of Commissioner Lieberman, thank you for the opportunity to be here, and we're excited for the connections that may come from tonight.
Thanks, Amy. So our next speaker probably needs no introduction, inasmuch as he has worked tirelessly for the community since he first arrived here in 1964. Did I get the year right? Okay. The last time we spoke, I got it all wrong. The Honorable Walter H. Rice has been a judge in this community for over 53 years, the last 43 of which have been spent as a judge on the federal U.S. District Court for the Southern District of Ohio, having previously served on both the Dayton Municipal Court and the Common Pleas Court. Judge Rice was born in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. He graduated from Northwestern University with a BA degree, and then received dual degrees from Columbia University School of Law and the Columbia University Graduate School of Business Administration. In 2014, he was the recipient of the Thomas J. Moyer Award for Judicial Excellence, given annually by the Ohio State Bar Association. In 2019, Judge Rice was the recipient of the Brother Raymond L. Fitz Award for Support of Children and Families. In that same year, the federal building in the United States Courthouse in downtown Dayton was named in honor of Judge Rice. Along with County Commissioner Deborah Lieberman, Judge Rice serves as co-chair of the Montgomery County Reentry Council. And the reason I know that he is such a mensch and the right person for this leadership position are the countless times I've witnessed individuals whom he sentenced upon their release seek him out to thank him for his words of encouragement. Judge Rice?
Well, Bonnie, thank you for a lovely introduction delivered just as I had written it out for you, and I'm very grateful. My remarks will be brief because when I hear the mention of dates, not only in the last century, but in the last millennium, I realize full well that it's long past my bedtime. But I'm delighted to be here to talk about one of my very favorite subjects, reentry. Reentry helps people who want to make a change in their lives help themselves to become contributing, law-abiding citizens, role models to their families and to their communities. Every year, ladies and gentlemen, between 1,000 and 1,500 people come home from state and federal prisons, 99% of them wanting to do the right thing, but many of them simply not knowing how. They come home, most of them with the same issues that took them to prison in the first place, whether it's drug addiction, mental health issues, lack of sufficient education, being non-employable, and so many other issues. And they come home and everybody greets them and says, we're here to help, we'll lend you a helping hand, but all too often it's the back of that hand. And sadly, so many people coming home with the best of intentions offend again and return to prison. Even those who don't return to prison are often condemned to live on the margins of society simply because of the issues against which they have struggled for so long. I became interested in reentry more than 20 years ago when it dawned on me something that I should have realized years before, and that is I was seeing in my courtroom the grandchildren of people that I had first interacted with when I became a judge in 1969. And I'm certain by now that I'm dealing with the grandchildren of some of those people. I became interested in reentry because often people that I had sentenced would come and see me. I'd ask how they were doing, and they'd indicate that they were doing well, but they needed help. Maybe help in finding a job, maybe help in having their driver's license restored, maybe help in just getting a foothold in the community so that their enthusiasm and dedication would take them all the way to being successful. Well, sadly, 20 plus years ago, there was no help in the community for persons coming home from prison or otherwise involved in the criminal justice system. People were left to fend for themselves all too often. I became involved in reentry because I realized, and still a not uncommon occurrence, to be in a court about to sentence someone, and I always talk to the people who come before me, and it is often the case that that person appearing before me ready to be sentenced, not willing, but ready to be sentenced, is the smartest person in the courtroom. I'm not talking about the person with the most common sense, or they wouldn't be in the position they're in. But in terms of raw intelligence, the smartest person in a courtroom filled with lawyers, a judge, probation officers, and the like. And it so frustrates me because some of these men and women had magnificent potential, truly magnificent potential. They could have done things that we can't even imagine, good things for their communities. And yet, simply because of circumstances, sometimes beyond their control, they took the wrong fork in the road. And it dawned on me that we must do something to salvage this potential, that it's not too late. They can still be productive, contributing citizens. There are two things I want you to consider. We hear about sentences of life plus 99 years, incredible sentences, but the reality is that the average and the median sentence is somewhere around 2 years. Most of the sentences are short. Our prisons, state and federal, in state prisons, they're somewhere near 15% overcrowded, face budget cuts every year, which results in the elimination of programs, both in quantity and the quality of the programs offered. So people come home from prison having served relatively short sentences without being able to access those programs that actually exist. They come home then without programming in prison, with all of the baggage that brought them into criminal court and into the prison system in the first place. Secondly, it used to be that everyone who came home from a federal or state prison was on parole. That's no longer the case. Thanks to changes in the law some years ago, half the people come home from prison without any parole supervision at all. Parole supervision would help them be directed to certain programming that might help them, would keep the returning citizen on the straight and narrow. Now, many people, and I believe the number will only increase, many people come home, they're in prison in the morning, they're home by mid-afternoon, and many of them have no idea where to go or what to do. Well, the Office of Reentry is changing all of that by replacing supervision, by replacing parole with a reentry office that hopefully will help them, help themselves to live productive lives. I'm going to sit down soon, but I'd like you to keep 4 things in mind. I'd like you to know that re-entry is the right thing to do. There isn't a religion, Eastern religion, Western religion, that doesn't stress redemption, that doesn't stress the ability of humans to help themselves, many times through hard work, many times through faith, many times through both. Every religion known to man and woman stresses redemption and the ability of the human kind to really rehabilitate themselves. I want you to know that reentry saves us an awful lot of money, as well as doing the right thing for deserving people. Montgomery County, and this statistic is not a new one, but maybe about 10 years ago, the discretionary money in the county budget, where the county could spend a portion of their budget on programs that they felt worthwhile, was only about 17%. The rest of it was mandated services. And I can tell you that the criminal justice budget at that time took up about 17%. I'm sorry, took up about 75% of that 17%. So if we could help people to help themselves contribute to the community and not take from it, think of what we could do with the money we save from criminal justice system expenses. Let your imagination roam for a moment, and you can see what saving this money would do for our community. Lastly, no, not true, next to last. Reentry is absolutely the best public safety measure that I have ever seen in all the time I've been in Dayton. And it's the best public safety measure because if someone is doing their very best to transform their lives from taking from the community and becoming contributing, tax-paying citizens of this community, role models for their children, those men and women aren't out and about committing criminal activity. It is a public safety measure. And lastly, I don't want you to forget this. Reentry works. In Ohio, about 30 to 35%, and it varies from county to county and from year to year, unfortunately offend again and return to prison. Those that don't return to prison often, as I've indicated, live on the margins of society. Our programming, particularly the Reentry Career Alliance Academy that you'll hear about shortly, if I would ever stop talking, our Reentry Career Alliance Academy has a failure rate, which is recidivism, has a failure rate of slightly less than 9%. So if you could take the reentry programs, if you could take in addition the specialty courts that deal with mental health, that deal with drug abuse, that deal with family dysfunction, we know what works. And Bonnie's point about ambassadors is so appropriate because if we could spread the word to the political class that for less than 1% of the cost of warehousing someone in prison, we could help men and women in the community without in any way, shape, or form jeopardizing the community safety. I hope you'll all become volunteers or at the very least ambassadors for reentry. Thank you for being here, and it's good to see everyone. Thank you. Bonnie?
Sterling Titus, our next speaker, is a Montgomery County Office of Reentry Program Coordinator, having come to that position with 20-plus years of experience with effective prison reentry initiatives. Sterling joined the Office of Reentry in August of 2019. At that time, he coordinated outreach efforts to statewide prisons and local facilities to conduct in-reach meetings with returning citizens from Montgomery County, with priority being given to those who are within 6 months of release. In his new role as program coordinator, Sterling continues to lead this program along with new duties. Sterling was instrumental in developing the Community and Resource Engagement Plan, which is utilized as the preliminary assessment tool for initial contact with returning citizens that connect with the Office of Reentry. Currently, Sterling is a member of the Ohio Department of Rehabilitation and Corrections Family Advisory Council, serves as the co-chair of that department's Reentry Anonymous Subcommittee, and is the staff liaison to the Montgomery County Reentry Council's Housing Subcommittee. Sterling holds a chemical dependency counseling assistant licensure. These are so wordy, all these degrees and all these, they're a mouthful, from the state of Ohio, and attends Park University to earn his BS in criminal justice. Sterling quickly earns the respect of all who meet him. His dedication to the reentry effort is unparalleled, and his ability to connect with people is one of his many keys to success towards that effort. And I would be remiss if I didn't mention that Sterling's wife, Robin, is here, who is also a tireless volunteer for the community, and in a previous life was one of our volunteer coordinators. So, Sterling?
Thank you, everyone, and thank you for taking the time to be here. I'm going to briefly give you an overview of, pardon me, the nuts and bolts of how we do what we do in RCAA. And in your handouts, I want to encourage you at some time to take a look at the programming outline, which consists of 29 workshops that are spread out over a 3.5-week period of time, concluding with a formal graduation for all of our participants who complete. And it's a ceremony that a lot of our participants say, I've never completed anything. I've never graduated from or received affirmation from anything. And so it's very significant, it's very important, and it is supported when you look at some of the workshops you'll see are facilitated by community volunteers from all aspects, from financial, social, substance use, mental health, parts of the barriers that we have identified that returning citizens encounter upon their return back to our community. The CARE plan is a significant part of that. That is an acronym for Community and Re-Engagement Plan, and that is, again, the beginning of that. We also encourage, we started our cohort today, first one for 2023, and we have 20 thirsty and hungry souls packed in this room to get that direction, that support, that nudge, that information and knowledge that they're going to need to make the changes based on our philosophy of action, alliance, and accountability, our AAA philosophy. And that goes two ways, and we let them know that. It's incumbent upon them to commit, and their accountability is crucial, but we are also accountable to what we say we're going to do for them when they come. I'm honored and privileged to go into the prisons to meet with returning citizens who are about to, within 6 months of their release, back to the community. Had a young man come in this evening, it's profound, and he said, I saw you on TV. We also do a video in-reach once a month through ODRC that connects with them and gives them information about our program. But he said, I saw you on TV, and my colleague was there also. He said, I saw you on TV, like we're famous. And it's a good thing to be known to be famous for these days, because what we do is crucial. What we do has such a significant impact. As Your Honor pointed out, it's a public safety issue, along with being just a community initiative that is needed, that is so far overdue. I also was privileged to be on the Montgomery County Emergency Task Force that created the outline and the basis and initiative for the Office of Reentry today. I actually have moved into Amy's former position as the program coordinator. And initially, I was like, those are some big shoes, and I'm not talking literally, of course, to fill. And but you know, we have 3 program coordinators. We only have 7 staff members. We call ourselves Small and Mighty Team. And I think what we produce with 5 full-time and 2 part-time staff members, if it wasn't for the community, if it wasn't for people like you supporting us, telling others, volunteering, anything you can think of. Some of our partners you'll see in there, Closed at Work, for example. We have clients that come in that say, I've never worn a suit, much less owned a suit. And when they graduate and they leave our program, you see the difference in a short period of time. It's only 29 workshops. You see such a significant difference from the time they come in the door to the time they march across that stage and they really see the tangible benefits and effects of what they have gotten themselves involved with. Because the other part is this, our program, and we don't really use that word so much now because by the time a lot of our clients come to us, they're programmed out. Prisons have a lot of programs too. The halfway houses have a lot of programs. And so we like to frame it as an experience. And they get that immediately upon engagement with us, that this is more of an experience than just a program. It's an experience that's going to redirect their lives. And this also has the family impact. It also has the impact on the children, those who have children, parents, siblings, everyone. This impacts us all. I'm going to close with, because our next speaker is really our guest of honor, because you're going to actually see a prime example of what we do and what someone can do when they make that commitment. I will also share that we all know Your Honor has been on the bench for quite some time, and the first time I went to prison was in 1982, and he's the one that sentenced me to prison in 1982. He was 2 years on the federal bench at that time. I doubt if he even remembers it. It's been so long and so many people, but I like to think that he's more fond of me now than the one that was standing down when he was looking down upon me from the bench. But anything's possible, and I know this to be true. I'm more of a dinosaur of reentry, because when I came home, it was in the 80s, and we were not calling ourselves returning citizens. We were still stigmatized as ex-convicts and convicted felons. And it was a totally different mindset in the community at that time. Thank God, praise God, that now there's been such a shift in that thinking and in the overall support and the community. Incarceration touches more people now. That's the other part of that. It's very hard to find someone who somewhere there's not someone close to them or a family member who has not been touched by this experience. And one of the primary things is to identify what led me there. In my case, it was substance use. And the most significant thing for me was when I got clean off of heroin and cocaine, that was the beginning of my life. And I've now been off of heroin and cocaine for over 35 years. It'll be 36 years in September. And that has been, thank you. That has been a day at a time. And then because of that, I am so honored to be in the position that I am now and to be able to be part of, as you'll see from our next guest's journey, that that is my new high. And thank you so much for listening to us. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Sterling. His story is incredible, and he's such an inspiration. We have two more speakers. Tara Feiner is our next speaker, and she is no stranger to our community, having helped countless individuals in her capacity as Senior Director of Jewish Family Services. She has been in this role at the Jewish Federation of Greater Dayton since 2015, a year after she and her husband, Dr. Adam Feiner, moved to Dayton, Ohio from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. She comes to JFS with her MS in Education from the University of Pennsylvania, her principal's certification from Drexel University, and over 18 years of experience in education, primarily in the school district of Philadelphia's Central Administration. In 2021, she earned her Executive Master's in Jewish Professional Studies from Spiritus Institute for Leadership and Learning in Chicago, Illinois. Tara combines her background in education, grants, leadership, and strategic planning with her passion for and belief in Jewish family services agencies as a critical component of community support. She considers it a privilege and an honor to serve her community. Tara is the newest member of our Public Education Subcommittee, and we know what an invaluable asset she'll be, as I've been privileged to witness her tireless work ethic, her enthusiasm, and creative spark to every project, and the creative spark she brings to every project she tackles. Tara?
Thank you, Bonnie. And I want to say thank you first to the Education Committee, because this is my first time being with this group in person, and I'm learning a lot, as you are. And I am not the honored guest that Sterling was referring to. That's going to be you, Jennifer. So I am one more removed from that. So I am not that person that you really want to hear from. That's coming in a second. I tend to talk quickly, and those of you who are from Beth Or, I believe the story of these snails up here is to remind the bar and bat mitzvah children to talk slower. All right, flag me down if I start talking too fast, and I'll try to stay focused on the snails. So Jewish Family Services is an agency of the Jewish Federation of Greater Dayton. And back in 2016, Kathy Gardner, our CEO, received a request from Ohio Jewish communities that some of the local prisons were looking for Seder plates. This came a week before Passover. And so Kathy passed the message to me, and I looked at it, and I'm like, what are they gonna do with Seder plates? A Seder plate is not something that stands alone. You don't just give it to somebody. It has the symbols of Passover that are then, the story is retold around the table with a Haggadah, with the story, with family, with friends, with a meal, very ritual. So I called the chaplain of Dayton Correctional Institution at DCI, and I said, we have this request for Seder plates. What's the plan? What's the intent? And we talked about what I just talked about with Passover, about there could be a point to this, a service to this, to connect with this. And so I agreed to come out and lead 2 Seders at Dayton Correctional Institution in 2016 with the 3 Jewish women who were there at the time. And it was an incredible experience, an eye-opening experience for me, just on what can and can't be done and the protocols involved, but also learning from the women who were there. And it was just an incredible experience, and I formed relationships with those 3 women. At that time, there were 3 women, and they came from all different walks of Jewish life. One grew up in a traditional Jewish home and was very familiar. One was identified as Jewish, wasn't Jewish, and intended to convert when she re-entered society after leaving incarceration. And another woman had found out recently she had a Jewish grandfather and wanted to connect. And that's what she wanted to do. And so we just approached everything very openly, participate to the extent you want to participate, ask questions, share. And I got to know these 3 women pretty well because I started going more regularly, decided to help them connect Jewishly at the holidays. So it went from just being Passover to then being Rosh Hashanah, which is the start of the Jewish New Year, one of the holiest holidays. And then started going at Hanukkah time, and then I added Purim. I got schnookered into Purim. And the way we approach this is Jewish Family Services. We provide those in the community, Jewish and not Jewish, with the tools and services to live happy, healthy Jewish lives. And part of that is for the Jewish community, helping those who are isolated connect at the holidays and connect Jewishly. We do that for those who reside at facilities at different points of the year. And we consider this part of our holiday outreach, connecting with Jewish women who didn't have connections anywhere else coming in. And that's how we approach this. So I go in, we do this, and I got to know these 3 Jewish women well. In time, I saw 5, but 2 of them didn't participate as often or were not there as long. And we get to a point where one of the women is getting ready to leave. And she emailed me through JPay, and I joke, this is a very serious topic, but I joke when I present. So it doesn't mean it's funny necessarily, that's just who I am. But in the Jewish community, we throw a J in front of something to make it Jewish. We've got the JCC, the Jewish Community Center, JFS, Jewish Family Services. I told Kathy Gardner, our CEO, we can never call anything JPay, because JPay is the system that the prisons use for communication and email and so on. I said, so JPay is off limits. But we communicated through JPay, we set up accounts and stamps and connected with each other, and she let me know that she was going to be leaving and that she was going to need some help. And so we started corresponding, and she was leaving Dayton Correctional Institution here in Dayton to go to Richmond, Virginia, to be with her sister. She had her plane ticket, she had her hotel reservation, she had the money for this, but she had barriers in her journey. Bonnie talked about earlier about barriers in this journey. She couldn't get to the hotel, and she had nowhere to go immediately after and to navigate. And so I said, we'll pick you up. We used our Jewish Family Services car, and I go to the prison the day of her release. I pick her up, and she's got 2 clear trash bags, wearing her green jumpsuit and a box of books. And she's gonna fly the next day. She had not flown in a very long time. I said, okay, we've got time. I took her out for her first lunch, and in addition to that, purchased a dinner, knowing she's going to be staying overnight at a hotel. We made a trip to Goodwill and got her a pair of jeans, a shirt, a little purse, because her ID was lost in this big trash bag, as well as a duffel bag. and we mailed her books to her sisters. I said that we're going to hit UPS. And then we went to the library because we set her up with a Gmail account so she could start communicating with people, as well as we called the TSA because her ID was not one of the listed IDs on the TSA that you're allowed to use when you travel. And I wanted her to know what to expect. And I didn't know what to expect. So we made the call together. And they told us she's going to get pulled aside. She's going to be asked for 2 other forms of ID. And it's the same thing we would do for anybody who forgot their ID. I said to her, listen, they're not going to single you out because you're a returning citizen. They're going to single you out the same way they would me if I forgot my ID, just to know what to expect. We went to a quick trip to Rite Aid, and then I took her to the hotel. And at the hotel, the motel that she was going to stay at, they didn't want to let her stay once they found out it was going to be cash and not a credit card. And we had to do some advocacy there. And eventually they let her stay because I wasn't leaving her until she had a room. And if they weren't going to give her a room, I was going to find her a place someplace else. I was ready to take her someplace else on the credit card. And we got her settled. She got to Virginia, and she wanted to connect with the Jewish Family Services down there. I contacted them. I said, here's what she wants to do. Who's the best person to talk with so she can make this as easy as possible for her? And they got me the name, and we connected them immediately just to make this transition and this journey as easy as possible. So that was, I'm going to change names, Kara's story in 2016. In 2018, the woman I had been corresponding with and visiting quite a bit in different services, she was getting ready to leave. She was hoping to stay in Dayton, but she was going to a halfway house in Cincinnati. And she wanted some help identifying the Jewish community there and how to connect in places that were near the halfway house and so on. So we did some research, and unfortunately this was during COVID, so I didn't get to visit her or say goodbye or any of that, but we stayed connected through JPay. And once she knew where she was going, we looked up the congregations. I gave her a list that was close by, along bus routes. We did that research. And then she also knew she wanted to get connected to Jewish Vocational Services and JFS in Cincinnati. I said, okay. And got those point people for her and got her connected. So it would be low barrier, really easy, not an overwhelming process. And so our goal was to help people connect Jewishly, just be there for them in the way they wanted to be, and then help them connect with community. Because we all know that is part of our identity for some of us. You know, not everybody, but for some of us, that it is part of our identity, our religion. Make that accessible and be there for them as community. And that's where we got involved with these reentry efforts. And Bonnie was so gracious in hearing the story and what we had done and asked us to be a part of this. And for that, I am grateful. And we are grateful and look forward to learning and being more a part of it.
So what's so wonderful about Tara's story is it's that personal insight, one person helping another person. And it's so inspirational. But those stories are amplified 100-fold every day at the reentry office. Our staff are the same type of people that Tara Feiner is. They go out of their way to help people, and they're extraordinary stories. And I'm sorry that we don't incorporate more of them into our presentation, but we want to give you kind of the framework first and then tell you the stories. So our next speaker, I am so thrilled. I have just met Jennifer for the first time tonight, and I am so excited to have her here. Jennifer Rice made the journey home after serving 5 years at the Dayton Correctional Institution. While incarcerated, she invested in her education by gaining her Business Office Support Specialist certificate. Prior to release, she engaged with the Montgomery County Office of Reentry through the virtual Restorative Voices program. In November of 2021, within 24 hours of release, she was enrolled in the 4-week Montgomery County Reentry Career Alliance Academy program. Upon successful completion, she secured employment with Precision Manufacturing and celebrated her 1-year workplace anniversary in December 2022. Jennifer currently participates in programs which improve her quality of life, such as the Self-Love Program, through an entity called Divine Core Transformations. Her long-term goal is to become a life coach for Divine Transformations. In the meantime, her intermediate goal is to become a certified peer support specialist, and she is anticipating starting her program at Clark State in March of 2023. Jennifer has volunteered with the Office of Reentry as a graduate speaker and reentry champion. Jennifer's former experience in medical assisting as a nurse assistant aligns with her passionate personality. She considers herself an active listener who operates with empathy and compassion. Jennifer believes the Reentry Career Alliance Academy ignited her successful transition home, and now she inspires others to do the same. This cannot be an easy thing to stand up here and tell about your prior life experiences. Jennifer, we are so happy to have you here tonight, and I hope you will give her a very warm welcome.
Good evening. My name is Jennifer Rice, and I'm 46 years old. Everyone has a story, and my life choices led to an unhealthy, abusive relationship. I suffered with low self-esteem, which led me to the relationship filled with grief. I began to use drugs in my relationship. I abused and used drugs. And about 5-10 years into my addiction and my dysfunction, I committed a violent crime and was sentenced to prison. I was arrested in 2016, and I served 5 years at the Dayton Correctional Institution. While I was there, I was accepted into the reintegration unit at DCI. I was required to maintain a 40-hour or higher schedule per week to be allowed to live in the reintegration unit. I was at DCI during the pandemic, and I connected with the Restorative Voices program. This is where I was introduced to the Zoom facilitators, Jamie G., Dr. Alice Diebel, Dr. Rhonda Smith, and I was reconnected with, I was reconnected, and with Dr. Rhonda Smith, she formerly worked at DCI. She provided programming there. And this is where I learned of the Montgomery County Office of Reentry, the Reentry Career Alliance Academy. I served 5 years, and I was released on November 1st, 2021. And within 24 hours, I was connected to the Office of Reentry. I got out of prison, and I called that day, and I left a message. And the very next day, Sterling Titus called me back. And he introduced himself, and he's like, "I'm glad you called." He's like, "You ready to start?" And I was thinking I would start maybe January. And I said, "Sure." And he said, "Well, you want to come today?" And I said, "Today?" Well, the bus just stopped taking money that day, so you had to get a tap card. I didn't know how to ride the bus. I didn't have a tap card. I said, "I want to come, but I don't have any way to get there." So he's like, "No problem, we'll come and get you." I'm like, "Okay." So I had no excuse. So he did. He came and got me, and I got in the car, and he said, "Nice to meet you." He said, "Young lady, it's freezing outside. Where is your coat?" And I said, "I don't have one." So he's like, "We're going to find you a coat." And I was like, "Okay." So they welcomed me with open arms, and I went through the entire program, and I talked to Sterling a few times about my drug addiction, and he asked me how I planned on staying clean. I told him that I took IOP in prison and that I had an excellent counselor, and had he not showed me why I started using in the first place, I would have never stopped. Because if you don't know why you start to use, you're going to continue to use. So I'm still sober, almost 7 years. And I told Sterling that I probably needed to go to some meetings, but I'm just coming home and I'm like shell-shocked. I don't know anyone. And he's like, "Do you have a cell phone? Give me your cell phone." So he gave me I gave him my cell phone, and he downloaded virtual NA and AA meetings on my phone. And he said, "If you don't want to see anybody or you don't want anyone to see you, you just turn the camera off." He showed me how to download Zoom, all that. I wasn't aware of how to do any of that. So without having transportation or not even wanting to see anyone yet, I wasn't ready, but I needed to stay clean. I would just go to the meetings on Zoom, and I would turn the camera off, and I would listen. And they didn't have to see me, or if I had questions, I could speak, but I didn't have to. I could do that at home, and wasn't worried about who was going to see me or anything like that. So I graduated. Well, I had so many barriers before I was trying to get a job. I was a violent offender. I had drug charges. I'm on parole for 5 years. I have mobility issues. I have to have knee replacement surgery, and I'm not allowed to stand for long enough to work a regular job. So I told Sterling all of this, and he's like, no problem, we're gonna get you together. And I was like, but I'm on parole, but I have drug charges, and I just kept adding to the list, and he didn't even seem like he was worried at all. And he found me a job. He found me a job at Precision Manufacturing, and I sit down and I make military parts for airplanes. But while I was during the reentry thing where we were doing the workshops, I'm nervous. I had applied for 30 jobs on my own, and I was denied every single job, even at a laundromat. And it's like, I'm not too good to work at a laundromat, but when they tell you you can't work for them, makes your self-esteem go even lower. And the whole time I was in prison, I worked so hard to get it up. So I paroled at my stepfather's house. He gave me a 60-day limit to leave. He said, come home, do what you need to do, and you have 60 days. Well, I'm going through reentry, hoping that I get a job, applying for jobs on my own. I'm getting turned down for job after job after job after job. I have no money. I'm on parole. So it was a struggle. It was a struggle. But the Career Alliance, they taught me how to ride the bus. One of the workshops is someone from RTA, and they come in and they teach you how to ride it and show you everything, how to download everything. Like, you don't get any of that in prison. You don't have internet, so they can teach you groups all day long, but when I had to go to urgent care, you have to scan the little square. I had no idea how to do that, none. But they brought another person in from the workshop. They said, this is how you scan something, and it's just things that it's normal to everybody in here, but when you've been on the inside and you come out, you feel like an alien because you just don't know. So they helped me locate employment. They helped me write a resume. They did mock interviewing. They got me my first outfit, my interviewing outfit. I think it was like 3 outfits. I got a job. I still have that job. And they also located housing for me. So my first apartment. I've just now moved into my second apartment where I pay all my bills on top of, being just, I also have a car. I got a car in October, so I don't have to ride the bus anymore, but if I have to, I know how. But when I look back on my situation after release, I had a lot of barriers. I had no transportation, no clothes, no job, no money. The clock is still ticking. My dad's like, you have 60 days. And the stigma of having a violent crime and drug charges and my mobility issues. And they still found me a job. They still supported me. If you need anything, call. It would be after hours. I would text. I would leave messages. They would return. They still do. And I've been out for 14 months. And they're still very supportive. So. But now that I've graduated reentry and I've had my own job and everything, what I want to do now to give back is I want to go to college, and I'm already enrolled. I start in March for the peer support specialist training. I am going to take the School of Hope Dr. Rhonda created the curriculum for, and I'm going to be a life coach for her, for Dr. Rhonda. She's been an amazing inspiration for me. But I don't know where to go now, I'm sorry. But yes, it's needed. Reentry is needed because when you come out, like people say, your family say they can do this or they can do that. Sometimes they can't, and sometimes they don't realize the impact that is on them when you come home because my family had never been incarcerated. They hadn't, and I hadn't either. But I went straight to prison and had to come out and learn. And while you're in prison, you have to make a choice of, you have to figure out why you went in the first place, and you have to figure out why you're there, what changes you're gonna make to not ever go back. So little things like a bus pass that doesn't seem like much is a huge barrier for someone that's just trying and can't get anywhere. Like me with mobility issues, like I couldn't walk. So, thank you. Well, I'd also like to thank Beth Temple for the invitation. She provided me with the opportunity to stand before you today, the Montgomery County Office of Reentry, Judge Rice, Commissioner Lieberman, Bonnie Rice and Arvin Ridley, Public Education Subcommittee, my mentor, Dr. Rhonda Smith, my support team, my sister. Thank you.
So you've witnessed what we've been seeing for years, and I hope you're as moved as we are. I have a sign-up sheet up here. I would love for people, if you're interested in getting information, to please give us your contact information, and we can take questions and answers. We've got about 8 minutes until our time is up, I think. So are there any questions that we can field for you? You can direct them to anybody up here.
Could you go over the volunteering opportunities again, those areas you mentioned?
Sure. Yes, we have a volunteer coordinator, and so at the Office of Reentry, she can be contacted, and you can brainstorm with her. There are so many opportunities, but if you want to do collections, if you have skills that you think a returning citizen might be able to benefit from, such as Marty, who came in and taught writing to the students, to the participants. If you want to attend a graduation as a tour trip for the congregation, the graduations are incredibly inspiring, and they have classes every, how many weeks, Jamie? Is it 9 cohorts a year? So there are 9 graduations. They're held at the Montgomery County Administration Building, and it's incredibly powerful. You see a whole class of graduates who really, as Sterling had said, many times have received no affirmation, and here they're receiving statements from the commissioner, congratulating them, and certificates of completion, and it's just powerfully inspirational. And Amy or anybody want to add? I haven't covered the gamut of volunteer opportunities, but
But if you look at your contact sheet, our volunteer coordinator information is on in this page over this week. I'm sorry. Oh, there we go. Sorry. But Paige Rogalinsky is our volunteer coordinator. And you reach out to her and she will guide you through that process. There is an application, a brief background check, and then upon approval, she will help you examine where your heart or passion lies as far as what you can do with our office to help.
I would also add that there are volunteers who teach at the Career Alliance Academy and come in and do sessions on mediation, we have people from credit unions who come in and teach financial lessons. There's a whole gamut, and the classes, I think, are in your brochure there. So if you have any expertise like that, that might be able to be shared with the participants, that's another opportunity.
There's really no limit to what a volunteer can do. It can be anything from helping in the office to writing letters and keeping in touch with persons incarcerated, giving them encouragement, or even going into the prison yourself after training to help the incarcerated person develop a reentry plan. It's more than $75 and an admonition of not to come back. It's a reentry plan that has been developed where they can find employment, where they can find housing, social services, and the like. And it's just not a list. The list consists of people who have been contacted by the volunteers who advocate for the returning citizens. So when someone leaves prison and comes home, they have not only a list of places to go, but specific people to talk to who themselves have been talked to by the volunteers. So the only limit on volunteerism is your imagination.
Yes, and you're correct. CQE is the Certificate of Qualification for Employment, and it is created to address barriers that employers have that may desire to hire a returning citizen, but by law are prevented from doing so because of collateral sanctions, which are Ohio Revised Code specific to certain offenses. So with that CQE, which is issued by a judge, and a lot of times the same sentencing judge that sentenced the returning citizen, that removes those barriers for the prospective employer so that they can consider hiring this person without any legal ramifications for themselves. So that's one of the tools that we use. And Quinn Howard is our primary point person for, he's our subject matter expert, so to speak, for the CQEs.
There's a question in the back.
At what point does the agency connect with the prison system or the jail system when a person is going to be released?
Under our current Eichelberger initiative, the protocol is 6 months, within 6 months of their release. Sometimes it'll vary, it might be 6 or 8 months, but within 6 months of a person's release, the Office of Reentry tries to make contact one way or another, ideally in person, to engage with the returning citizen so that they have the information and hopefully see the engagement, see the value and come out. But at the very minimum, they know that the help is there. They can't come home from prison and say, well, there's nothing out here for me. They know prior to release, and that's our primary goal with that.
You go to all, you recognize only those individuals who are coming back from Montgomery County?
Well, we just recently received an expansion grant from ODRC. Number one, yes, Montgomery County primarily. We are now able to serve Greene, Preble, Miami, and Dark counties also through this initiative, and that's currently in development. A lot of it might be virtual, but we can serve those outlying counties. So now we're serving 5 counties. Yes.
How unique is the program, and why would it not be statewide or nationwide?
The Bureau of Prisons, the Bureau of Prisons has been very helpful in standing up reentry efforts in the various counties. Unfortunately, because of COVID, the number of counties covered by reentry offices has gone from 66 to under 20. We're now trying, the state is to build them up again. And one of the things we've done in the past is go to other counties who are interested in starting a reentry, not to tell them that what we do is the only way to do it, but simply to share some of the things we did that worked and some of the things we did that have not yet worked. So we're trying to spread the gospel. Jamie G is very active in state reentry efforts to try to spread the word. Jamie, I don't know whether you have something to add to that or not.
Only that, I'm sorry, only that the Ohio Association of Local Reentry Coalition, we have been in existence for approximately 8 years now. And so a lot of the counties across the state look to Montgomery County as a model. There are a lot of other counties that want to establish something very similar to our academy, but they don't have the capacity yet. You know, we have a unique model, and we asked about uniqueness. It's from the top down. It's been supported from Judge Rice and the vision to Judge Rice and Commissioner Lieberman. And even beyond the task force being created, this was a conversation and things were moving in the direction of moving barriers to minimizing barriers to employment that then began to evolve into the community market task force. The blueprint for reducing recidivism in Montgomery County, which started at 44%, and then was reduced within a 5-year period down to 27.5%. And so when you look at our model, we share that, as Judge Rice mentioned. There are several of my counterparts across the state that want to adopt something similar, but they're on the road to getting to that point. I believe that our collaboration and our partnerships are key, nurturing those relationships in the community. We have over 2 or 3 dozen partners that connect to our academy, and we're grateful to be able to do the work that done.
I would add two things, and Amy, maybe you can address this. Our funding comes through the county, and so it gives us funding to operate. And that was Commissioner Lieberman's doing, and Amy and the predecessor. But the other thing that I have to say that I've just heard from the participants, we had a wonderful woman who lived here, went to a different county, and they had a reentry program, but there's no support network. Our staff supports the participants in this program in the most humane ways and in the most personal ways. And that makes all the difference in terms of success.
And I was going to touch on what Bonnie mentioned about funding. That's one of the biggest barriers for really getting an effective initiative or program or anything implemented. And here in Montgomery County, we were fortunate because the effort started with successful grant application that then created some initial funding. And after 3 years roughly of living in grant world, it demonstrated the need enough to the county where our current county administrator at the time saw the value and really pushed for it to become a line item in the general fund budget. That doesn't happen very often in counties. We do share that model as well, but that county has to have a structure financially that supports that.
And that's probably one of the biggest reasons why reentry efforts in other counties have had to shut down, because of lack of funding from a public source. Certificates of qualification for employment are critical. They're critical because you have to go before the sentencing judge, and you have to prepare not elaborate paperwork, but paperwork demonstrating that you're simply a different person than when you first appeared before that judge at the time of sentencing. And our staff does a marvelous job, but we need volunteers to help with those certificates of qualifications for employment. And the benefit is this. Under the law, the reason why many employers won't hire returning citizens is because of the risk. The risk that if something goes wrong, then they may be sued, the employer, for negligent hiring and retention. The beauty of the certificates for qualification for employment is that if you hire someone with that certificate, you cannot be sued in the civil court for negligent hiring or representation. But that's just one of the many areas where volunteers are needed and welcome.
That touches on an area that I'm interested in. It seems to me the success of the program is dependent on building relationships with education institutions, including that vocational training in the business community. Can you talk about how you work on that and what success you've seen?
Well, one of our partners, as an example, is Sinclair Community College. They actually come in and facilitate 1 or 2 of our Education Matters workshops. And in that, we also partner with the county funding source for training, which is WIOA, for someone wants to get their CDLs or their barber's license and they want to go back to school for something vocational, then we are the conduit for that effort for them.
The Office of Reentry assists returning citizens securing a primary care physician and being
Yes, sir, we do. That's a case management function. We have a full-time case manager on staff. That is the primary. We all can do that. Most of us have a case management background. But we do make referrals with people that we work quite well with because that is very critical once identified. A lot of times someone is released from prison on what's called community linkage, which means that they were on the substance abuse caseload or the mental health caseload prior to their release, and we want to make certain that their transition is smooth and that they are connected with the support and the providers that they need to continue that substance use support or mental health support.
Bonnie, if I could add an answer to Joe Grunberg's question. Quinn Howard was initially the sole person responsible for obtaining employment, helping returning citizens obtain employment. And the way he operates is to establish personal relationships with the hiring personnel at these different companies. And these men and women know that if there's a problem with a given employee recommended by Quinn and the office, that they can call Quinn. And Quinn will act as an intermediary, will act as a job coach. Many of these men and women have not had prior employment, and they're not aware of generalizing, hopefully not stereotyping. They're not aware of how to handle constructive criticism or constructive criticism as distinguished from a personal act of disrespect. So we do try to build those relationships because without them, we're not really able to advocate for a given person. There was a question here.
When the individuals, the citizens are re-entering, are they automatically given one of these certificates, or do they have to apply for it, or how does that process work?
They have to, after a certain period of time, please don't ask me how long because I don't have the answer. Sterling, I'm sure does. After a certain period of time, they have to go before the judge who sentenced them. And they have to make the case that, as I said before, they're a totally different person or a different person than first appeared before the judge. So it's not automatic.
Yes, sir.
It's not an entitlement. They have to demonstrate quite clearly that they're well on the path or have established themselves on that new path of stability before, and the judges, they use their own judgment, of course, and they also use their own methodology to grant these CQE. So they're not just granted to everyone. It's something they have to work for. They have to pretty much be sincere about, because if not, they may have to circle back, to get the quality, to get that certificate. Well, it's not a barrier to all employment. The CQE is specific to some employers that work in certain manners that there are laws, which are called collateral sanctions, that actually prohibit them from making certain hirings unless this person has a CQE. So it's not a barrier because the returning citizen has to demonstrate and earn that. It's not given. If that was the case, then how do we know if this particular person who is petitioning for the CQE really fits the criteria of change that's necessary for them to be considered for CQE?
And I'm getting signals, is that 1 minute or one question?
One more question.
Okay, one. Yes, sir.
In talking of certification, I'd like to point out that the Ohio Department of Legal Corrections has an extensive education program from associate education, GED, some college courses, as well as career technical courses it's not as if they're coming out from the void. There are some opportunities from within the business. You're absolutely correct. My point is that given the average length of sentence and given some of the budgetary cuts, many people aren't in prison long enough to take advantage of these programs.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, we just want to thank you so much for your attention, your engagement, your questions. We'll be around if you have any questions you want to ask when we break. I do encourage you, please, we're so excited about our newsletter, and it would be a way to keep informed. So if you're interested or if you want to volunteer, fill this out, give us your contact information, and thank you once again to the Adult Education Committee.
Everybody, we would like to, as a member of the board, like to thank the panel, Bonnie, the judge, and everyone else for being here today. We'd like to thank the Adult Education Committee for putting this together. We have a reception around the corner in Leather Hall, thank you. And I'm sure everyone will be around for a few minutes to ask more questions. So I think they deserve a round of applause and a big thank you.